this is now spine number 145 or episode number 145, however you like to refer to it. I haven't really been introducing myself, but I am your host, Andrew. And today we will, of course, be going over what we usually go over here on Chasing Labels. We will be going over all of the recent announcements in the world of boutique physical media when it comes to movies over the last 2 weeks or so. And we will be, of course, doing all of that. But beforehand, we'll, of course, catch up a little bit on what's been going on over the last 2 weeks, especially when it comes here to Chasing Labels. If you haven't been aware yet, or you haven't checked over on the Chasing Labels YouTube channel, we did a new unwatched pile of very much at the end of July, at one of the very last days of July. And I think it was the 30th. Yes, it was me, Steven, and our friend Celeste Lacabra, and we talked about some movies that were on our unwatched pile, and we paired it up with the movie that we had seen before that was in our collection. I chose the movie Lone Star, the John Sayles film, which I had never seen before. I basically waited forever for it to get released on Blu-ray. Actually, I still have it right here on the couch with me. We've got I talked about this. Steven talked about Light Sleeper, and Celeste talked about Black Narcissus, the Michael Powell film. And um, I had a great time with all of them talking about it. We got some comments here. Okay, so we've got one comment here from Magic Hands. What's up, everyone? Hopefully, everyone is doing well. We always wish well on everyone. We got our buddy here, Johnny Pomato, who's been a guest here a couple of times. He's actually been a guest. I think he's been a guest on the Unwatched Pile. If he hasn't, he probably will be in the future. I believe he was. He was a guest here, of course, on Chasing Labels. Always a great supporter. Great to have you here. Great to have anybody here, or anytime, really. So I've just been going over. Yes, he has. Good. I was right. I was right. See, that was the one thing about having a co-host here is you can kind of, if you can't remember something, chances are they will. You know what I mean? We have a list, I think, of all of our guests over on our Facebook page. I don't know if it's been updated up until now, but basically, I think it's been updated up until recently. And so I have to go back there and just refresh my memory over who has been a guest here, who hasn't been a guest here, who will be a guest in the future, all of those things. But that's clinical. That's clinical work. You don't need to know any of those things. But before we dive into the new announcements, I do want to say we got a bit of news in the movie world today, which I wanted to touch on a little bit because it does hit very much close to home for me personally on the movie side of things. And that is, one David Lynch, the great David Lynch, who's directed such films as Mulholland Drive, Blue Velvet, The Lost Highway, so many great films. Of course, he was the brains behind the great TV series Twin Peaks. He announced a bit of a health issue update today, and the fact that he has emphysema, the lung ailment, which, if you know David Lynch, you know that he has been a heavy smoker for many, many years. And he basically came out and said that is the reason why he's dealing with that ailment now. And it's rather severe in terms of the effect it's having on him, especially his ability to direct or make anything in the future. He basically said that he can't leave his home, for fear of contracting some type of ailment that'll make that situation worse. When it comes to lungs and it comes to health, things like that, you don't mess around with those things, especially at his age or really at any age. So it is very unfortunate that he is going through those health issues. And it's very unfortunate, I guess, just for the movie world in general, that we may never see any of his work again. But that's obviously secondary to his health and his well-being. So of course, here on Chasing Labels, we want to wish him all well and all the good wishes and everything towards him. I know he's been a profound effect on me as a cinephile. I mean, opening my mind to the world of cinema. Um, you know, David Lynch was so eye-opening to me in terms of avant-garde cinema, in terms of surrealist cinema, in terms of pushing the boundaries of what you thought movies can be. Watching Blue Velvet and Mulholland Drive for the first time blew my mind. Blew my mind. Our buddy Johnny here says, he'll be missed down at Bob's Big Boy. Yeah. Um, Hopefully he'll direct better from his couch than John Carpenter does, but I hope he's able to stick around for a lot longer, even if not in public. He did say that if he does direct anything, it'll probably be done remotely, which we know can be done now with the technology that we have. I know he obviously doesn't prefer it. I don't think many directors or filmmakers prefer it, but that may be the case going in the future for those dealing with health ailments. And I bring that up not to be, not to, dwindle on the sadness of it, but on the reality of it. We've seen over the last few years, a lot of the people that we've known in the world of movies and the history of movies have unfortunately passed away. So, reality does hit you very, very hard. But let's not dwell on that. Let's dwell on like more positive things. I did recently get a bunch of new movies here, so this will be a bit of a quasi update, a little mainstream stuff here for those of you interested. I went down to my local Walmart and was able to pick up The Civil War, the new Alex Garland film, a very rather divisive film for this year. I thought it was actually incredibly well made and rather interesting and not quite what I thought it was, but thought it was very good. And then The Fall Guy, which unfortunately didn't do so well in the theater, but I thought was relatively well made. Ryan Gosling is great on screen. He and his chemistry with Emily Blunt I thought was fantastic. The action sequences are great. This was a big hit at South by Southwest. Just when it came to the mainstream movie theater, it really didn't quite pop as much as you would think. And yeah, this is directed by David Leitch, who of course is known for doing these kind of modern day action films, which some people like, some people don't like. I rather enjoyed it for what it is. So I picked up these two just so I could stay relatively within the mainstream of things. And then finally, my order came in from the Kino spring into summer sale, and I won't dwell on it too much because I know we got a lot to talk about today. But I did get a couple of Nancy Savoca films. Of course, you saw I got Dogfight during the Criterion sale, and then I got True Love, and then I got Household Saints. So I've got a good, healthy dose of Nancy Savoca, a nice Nancy Savoca double feature here. One came out in '89, and I think this came out in '93. I think this was her follow up to Dogfight. I think, or did Dogfight come after this? Either way, we're seeing some Nancy Savoca stuff get some Blu-ray releases, which is always super nice. And then I got four more here. Actually, four 4K UHDs. Mystery Men, which is a movie I saw at the ripe age of 12 years old back in 1999 at my local theater, which I don't think exists anymore. I remember seeing this somewhat ambiguously, and I remember, my uncle took me and took a bunch of my cousins and just kind of the local friends and whatnot. We went down to the theater. We saw this movie. I've never owned it on VHS, never owned it on DVD, never owned it on Blu-ray, and this has been on my wish list for the last couple of years. I finally got it. Super excited to revisit this. I love the cast. This is going to bring back so many nostalgic memories. And then I've got another movie I've never owned, but I think is good when it comes to the world of like more modern day remakes, and that is The Manchurian Candidate, the film by Jonathan Demme. This is the 4K UHD of that. And when it comes to um, you know, remakes of classics, of all-time classics, really, in The Manchurian Candidate, this is really good. I actually really like this movie a lot. This stars Denzel Washington, Liev Schreiber is in it. Yeah, from the late great Jonathan Demme. So moving on from there, I got a couple of classic westerns. This is an upgrade for me because I already have this on Blu-ray. High Noon, yeah, the Fred Zinnemann film. Of course, I don't think this needs any further explanation. The film starring Gary Cooper and Grace Kelly. Yeah, I'm excited to rewatch this on 4K. Actually, I have an old Olive release, the first Oliver release that they had put out. I have that, and then I have Gunfight at the OK Corral, a film I've never owned, but it's another film that is by an all-time great in John Sturges, starring Burt Lancaster, Kirk Douglas. Yeah, it's a classic for a reason, basically. So I picked those up, slowly catching up on certain things here that I've been wanting to get for the last little while, some Kino stuff, and then I got some things from the Vinegar Syndrome subscriber week. That was I believe, the first week of July. I've got Burning Paradise, the Ringo Lam film. I've got The Iceman Cometh. And then I got Wolfpack, the VSA release. This is actually the first VSA release I've ever gotten from Vinegar Syndrome. We're going to be talking about Vinegar Syndrome later on, because they, of course, had their announcement on the 1st of August. A lot to go over there. So this is my first VSA release, and I am very, very happy. It's a thick packaging here. So moving on from there, I got one more release here, and that is the movie Ape. This is from one of their partner labels. This is from, I think, Factory 25. Factory 25 put this out. I just want to give this a quick rundown here. Yeah, their subscriber week, they had like daily deals that you could pick up on the day, and some of those prices were way too good to pass up. So I snagged those. So let's move on now to what we've got cooking when it comes to announcements. Let's see. I want to dive into I don't know. I've been doing the individual releases first, just to get them out of the way, and then diving into the slates. So I think that's what I'll do. So a couple of things I do want to mention. This is what I think I've mentioned before. Both Seven Samurai and The Third Man are getting 4K releases. These are coming in October. Seven Samurai is getting a 4K release from the BFI, from the British Film Institute. That is coming on October 21st, and this is coming from the new 4K restoration that was done by Toho. This is the one I think they've been exhibiting in the theaters for a little while now, and I know people are super excited about it. Who wouldn't be? Seven Samurai, it's an all-time masterpiece. But I guess I would kind of hold off on it to see who else is going to be releasing this in 4K. I would have to assume Criterion is. I mean, they must be at some point. Maybe they're just waiting for this release to come out, and then they'll announce their own that will be coming out either later this year or early next year, because the restoration's obviously there. And I know they've worked with Toho in the past when it comes to getting stuff, especially with the Godzilla set. I know those masters weren't the best, but they've at least worked with them in the past. Whether we get the same master now from Toho, we will see, or maybe they do their own work. I'm not sure. Their own restoration, I mean. So that is Seven Samurai coming out from the BFI October 21st. And then we got The Third Man, which I've already talked about. I posted about this news on the Facebook page for Chasing Labels like weeks and weeks ago, that this was coming. And it is coming. Do we have a date on this? Actually, I'm not sure. It's coming out in the cinemas on September 6th for the first time ever in the 4K Blu-ray this autumn, into Studio Canal's Vintage Classics collection. So it's going to be part of their Vintage Classics collection. And this is going to be, it says a 4K Blu-ray. 4K Blu-ray, the 75th anniversary edition. So it's coming to the theaters this September, and I assume the Blu-ray will come out, within the next couple of months, I hope. But yeah, this is an all-time favorite of mine, directed by Carol Reed, starring Joseph Cotton and Orson Welles. Orson Welles is the third man. Written by Graham Greene. This is an all-time classic film noir, classic film. I am still hoping out hope like a fool that Criterion will reacquire the rights to this and put out their own 4K. Once Upon a Midnight Dreary, I held the Blu-ray in my hand at Barnes & Noble, and this was circa 2010, 2011, when I didn't know anything about what I was actually holding in my hand, and I never bought it. And of course, it's since been out of print for years, going for uber amounts of money on eBay, which I wouldn't recommend anybody paying. I have a Studio Canal Lionsgate Blu-ray that they put out here many years ago. So I'm holding out hope that we either get the Criterion release. If not, I'll get the Studio Canal release at some point. But yeah, that's The Third Man coming out sometime in the future. 75th anniversary 4K Blu-ray from Studio Canal. So let me get rid of these tabs. Let's see what else I've got. Let me stay in the Studio Canal realm, because Studio Canal is putting out another film. Studio Canal is preparing a Blu-ray release of Basil Dearden's Cage of Gold from 1950, starring Gene Simmons, David Farrar, James Donald, Madeleine LeBeau, and Maria Malbin. And the release is scheduled to arrive on the market on September 16th, right around the corner. Cage of Gold is a 1950 British drama from Eating Studios, directed by Basil Dearden and starring Gene Simmons and people I just said. A young bride believes her husband has been killed. After a suitable period of mourning, she remarries. But then her dead husband, in quotes, comes back and tries to extort money from her. It's a new 4K restoration of the film. There's a new special feature here, Liz Tregenza on dress designer Frederick Stark, and then behind the scenes stills gallery. This is part of their vintage classics line as well. Now, Basil Dearden is a director that I've just got a little bit into. I know there is a Basil Dearden Eclipse set from Criterion. That's where I've heard the name before. And I've just started getting into his work because Studio Canal has been releasing several of his movies in their Studio Classics line. And I've been watching them as we've been doing it here on the podcast, or covering it here on the podcast. He's directed the movie Victim, the movie Dead of Night, The Man Who Haunted Himself, The Assassination Bureau, which is the movie I actually own. The movie, I have that movie. Yeah, he directed a bunch of British film. So check out Basil Dearden's work. Let's see what we got here in terms of, we got some comments from Johnny. Let's see. Yep, I'm all up on the Savoca Love, Household Saints and True Love, both great discs. Yes, I'm super glad to have them. It kind of bothered me a little bit. My OCD is kind of bothering me that the Household Saints didn't come with a slipcover, because it just missed. If you see, I have the stack here, and I'm missing one. Anyway, it doesn't matter. No, I got them all. Sorry, I miscounted. But see, I got the stack here. I got the one lonesome non-slipcover one. I don't know. That's just me and my OCD. But yeah. So they are both great discs. Let's see. I'm glad Johnny agrees with me. If 4K is a lock, I'm pretty sure you're talking about Seven Samurai. Yeah. You and I are on the same wavelength, Johnny. Johnny says, I know what you're going to say. The slip and spine doesn't match. Drove me mad. It really does. When I finally set up a Nancy Savoca section, because I think she's definitely a worthy enough candidate to have a section in my collection. It's going to be, it's going to look like this. And then, of course, you've got the Criterion as well, which, of course, doesn't match up either. But it's fine. As long as the films are getting released, I can't complain too much. I think I have Dogfight around here somewhere. Sorry, I got stacks and stacks of stuff. I got to organize things. But let's see. What was I just talking about? Yeah, Cage of Gold, the Basil Dearden film, coming out by Studio Canal in September 16th. So let's see what else I've got in terms of individual releases here. Let's see, Seven Samurai, third Cage of Gold. Work my way into that. All right, let's dive into some slate. Let's go Warner Archive. Warner Archive, because a little bit of news that goes along with the Warner Archive announcement. A little bit of news here. For those of you who've been listening from the very beginning of Chasing Labels, we at the very early start, we thought that Warner Archive was kind of going away. There were hints that they were perhaps, Warner Brothers was perhaps getting rid of their Warner Archive Blu-ray line or things like that. And there was a lot of fear amongst collectors and whatnot. I know they basically took them off of their website. They basically shut down the Warner Brothers online store when it came to movies, and they moved over to Criterion. They moved over to Amazon. That's pretty much kind of where you can get them now, but you can get them at, Diabolic and all those other places, but you know what I'm saying. We had to, choose other places. That 4 for 44 deal went away and all that stuff. But they've now changed their social media handles from Warner Archive to Warner Classics, and they've changed the logo as well, which got people a little scared. But they're not changing. They're seemingly not changing the packaging, and they're seemingly not changing the name of the line that they've got here, of the Warner Classics line. Because if you look at their September releases, They all say Warner Archive on them. They even say Warner Archive announces September releases. That's the headline here. I don't know why they changed it from Warner Archive to Warner Classics. It's there. Warner Brothers. I makes me scratch my head with the things they've been doing over the last few years. I know they're in a series, series of turmoil decisions and whatnot because of the whole merger/acquisition with Discovery and all this nonsense. It's all nonsense. But I just don't want this line to go anywhere. Basically, that's what I'm saying. They all of these movies are coming to Blu-ray for the first time. They all look amazing. I mean, we're getting exactly what we want as film fans, specifically film fans of classic movies. And this lineup here is all classic movies. You already have the branding, you already have the marketing, you already have us fans into buying these. Don't change up the formula just for the sake of it. You know what I'm saying? But that's just me going off on that. Um, yeah, Warner Classics. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, Johnny. I don't know why we're changing things that work. I mean, I know they want to squeeze more money probably out of this than changing the name. Maybe they thought that would do that, but I don't think it's going to. I don't yet again, I'm not in the boardroom meetings. I don't run the numbers. I'm not in the marketing team, any of that. But yeah, and Johnny also says if the logo and design of the disc change at some point, that could happen. We don't know. Maybe next year, maybe the year after. I don't know. Things keep changing at Warner Brothers so fast. I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised. I hope not. Just for the sake of continuity on my shelf, I hope not. I've got Warner Archive releases right here. I've recently picked up the Mr. and Mrs. Smith uh, Blu-ray from the Alfred Hitchcock film. So I recently picked that up, and so yeah, I've been buying Warner Archive stuff all along, and sometimes you never know when they're gonna go down in price. Um, yeah, yeah, I would agree with Johnny as well. He says that not everything they release is a classic. That's also very true. That's why I think the archive name works so well because you're just taking things from their back catalog. You're taking things out of their archive, whether it's animation, whether it's live action, whether it's a movie from the 30s or a movie from the 90s or 2000s. It doesn't quite matter since you're pulling from a 100-year-long archive. You're literally celebrating the archive of Warner Brothers, and showing how deep it goes. So I don't know, but anyway, let's get into these Warner releases. So we've got a good crop of films here, in my opinion. Journey into Fear from 1943, Conflict from 1945, Bathing Beauty from 1944, I Remember Mama from 1948, A Prairie Home Companion, Johnny's Golden Quest / Johnny's Quest versus the Cyber Insects, two animated films, one from 1992 and one from 1995. They have not yet put out the Johnny Quest series on Blu-ray. That's just a little interesting kind of tidbit there. I don't know much about Johnny Quest. That wasn't quite in my wheelhouse as a kid, and I haven't visited it as an adult. In comparison to the other kind of Warner Brothers catalog animation titles, I also do want to mention they are coming out with another Looney Tunes volume, their Choice Collection, I believe that's called. I have the first two volumes. I've got to get volume 3. They're coming out with volume 4, which I believe is coming out relatively soon. I should probably check what the date is on that, but it's either September or October. It's one of the two, but they're coming out with a 4th volume of that, which is awesome because, pump out as much of that Looney Tunes stuff as you can. I've been collecting it all along. I still got to work on that collection as well. But just diving into some of these films here, Journey into Fear was a nice surprise for me. This is a movie I think I watched either on Filmstruck or I watched on YouTube. I don't remember, but it is a movie that may or may not have been directed by Orson Welles, or he may have directed some scenes of it. He may have done some late work in it or some post work in it. There's a lot of question marks when it comes to that. Anywho, he has an uncredited credit for the movie, and the movie stars Joseph Cotton, who is an American gunnery engineer pursued by the Gestapo agents. His adventures take him cross paths with an impressive array of characters portrayed by Dolores Del Rio, Ruth Warwick, Agnes Moorehead, Everett Sloan, Hans Conried, and Orson Welles himself is in the movie, so I got to get it, who plays Colonel Hackey. head of the Turkish secret police. Of course he does. Of course he does. This is a 4K restoration. There's an audio-only Orson Welles at the Mercury Theater broadcast of Dracula, of Treasure Island, of A Tale of Two Cities. So I just assume it's Orson Welles doing those, Mercury Theater radio broadcasts of those, famous works of literature. Yeah, so there's, like I said, new 4K restoration. Conflict, I know, is a movie that stars Humphrey Bogart, Sidney Greenstreet's in the film. It's a film noir, I believe. Conflict is a triangle with murder at its heart. An atmospheric film noir of rainy nights, the looming shadows, fatal romance, and a trench-coated killer that walks out of the mist, all directed by Curtis Bernhardt, a filmmaker skilled in the impressionistic style of his native Germany. The story embraces the perfect noir topic, the almost perfect crime. Humphrey Bogart portrays Richard Mason, married to nagging Catherine, but in love with her sunny sister. Shortly after a 50-year wedding celebration at the home of a friend, Richard decides to remove the obstacle to his happiness. He kills Catherine, carefully leaving no evidence of his guilt, so basically trying to commit the perfect crime. Or at least he thinks he killed her until mysterious events cause Richard to fear Catherine is very much alive. New 4K restoration from the original camera negative, awesome. Classic 1945 Warner Brothers cartoons, Life with Feathers, Trap Happy Porky, and then Peaks at Hollywood, Are Animals Actors. Those are also WB 1945 shorts. And there's a radio broadcast starring Humphrey Bogart of Conflict as well. So those are the two kind of major highlights, I think, for this. Although there's another film here of note. Bathing Beauty is a movie I'm not going to spend too much time on. It's a romantic comedy starring Red Skelton and Esther Williams. I think this is Esther Williams, one of her first films. She was so impressive in this film in terms of her on-screen appearance that they decided to, I think, change the name of the movie to Bathing Beauty just because of her presence on screen. And yeah, it's Red Skelton and Esther Williams. Let's see. Red Skelton enrolls in a women's college and graduates summa cum laude in comedy. Red's in rare form and Esther's in form-fitting swimsuits in this delightfully musical farce. Bathing Beauty begins with a splash. Xavier Cugat plays Red Clowns and Esther plunges into a pool, and from there things go up. So it's a musical comedy starring Red Skelton and Esther Williams. Yeah, it's fine. It's fun and entertaining if you like those 1940s types of films. Thought it was fine. But the next film is the one I really wanted to talk about, and the following film as well, and that is I Remember Mama. I Remember Mama is a film directed by George Stevens. George Stevens, of course, is a director whom I think many of us know. I'm just going to look up his credits right here. I have a George Stevens section in my collection. He directed Woman of the Year. He directed some of those films. Hold on, I think I spelled George wrong. Jeez. Shows you where my brain is at. Let's see. George Stevens. There he is. I'm looking on Letterboxd right now. Yes. He directed Giant, Shane, Place in the Sun, which is an astonishing film. He directed Swing Time. He directed, like I said, Woman of the Year. Gunga Din, which needs a Blu-ray release. The film starring Cary Grant. Come on, Warner Archive, do something with that. That would be nice. He directed Talk of the Town, also starring Cary Grant, if I remember correctly. Yes, that's him on the poster. And then More the Merrier, which I believe has a Blu-ray from Warner Archive. Vivacious Lady is a movie starring Ginger Rogers and James Stewart. I feel like I've seen the movie, but I haven't logged it on Letterboxd, which is odd to me. But anywho, so that's George Stevens, and I Remember Mama is a great film. It's a really, really great film. Under the skillful direction of Oscar winner George Stevens, Irene Dunne and Barbara Bel Geddes star in this reminiscence of a daughter for the mother holding their family together. With love and discipline in the heartwarming I Remember Mama. Mama emigrated from Norway to early 20th century San Francisco, where she devoted her life to her children, including Katrine, keeping her house in order and reigning in their offbeat relatives, friends, and boarders in this family classic based on the Catherine Forbes short story collection, Mama Bank Account, and the play by John Van Druten. So what you have here is Irene done playing a dramatic role, which I don't typically see her in. I see her more in screwball comedies with Cary Grant. I see her in things like that, but she is in this dramatic role as this matriarch of this family, and she is the glue that binds this family together. And she just is, you know, kind of everything to this family. She runs their finances, she runs their household, she runs the people coming in and out of their lives. She deals with the family at large. They have this kind of uh kind of crazy uncle, and she has to deal with his antics as well. He's actually great he's a great character in the film. He pops in from now and then. He just steals every scene he's in, but she deals with all the children. Great cast in this. This movie was nominated for a bunch of Oscars as well. I can't recommend this enough. I'm gonna get it. I'm definitely gonna get it. So it all we got here in terms of this package is a new 4K restoration from the nitrate preservation elements. So that's it. No special features whatsoever, which is a damn shame because it's a good movie. It reminded me a lot of um Little Women. Kind of reminds me of that. This idea of, family and the different members of the family all having their own plot lines going on and interacting with one another, things like that. That's what this type of film reminded me of. But then we have a film here by the great Robert Altman, A Prairie Home Companion, which was his last film. Um, this is this is the film came out in 2006. I believe Robert Altman passed away in 2006, I believe. So this was the film that came out right around towards the end of his life. Um, um, it's an interesting film. There's an audio commentary here with director Robert Altman and Kevin Kline, who stars in the film. It's an ensemble cast, big ensemble cast, which I think if you know Robert Altman's work, that's kind of what he was known for in a lot of his films. You think of MASH, I think of Nashville, Shortcuts, even Gosford Park had a large ensemble cast. That's still a movie I need to upgrade my DVD of. Now that reminds me. But A Prairie Home Companion is based off of a real life radio show that was from Minnesota, and it ran, I think, from 1974 all the way up to 2020. And like it ran for decades, and the host of it was Garrison Keillor, and it was an old fashioned type of radio show. And Garrison Keillor actually is in this movie as the host of the show. So this is basically like a behind the scenes type of look at the way in which this radio show is run. The plot of the movie is that it's its last broadcast and it's going off of the air because it's being bought by some big corporation and they're shutting it down. So you've got Meryl Streep, Lily Tomlin, Lindsay Lohan is in this film, Woody Harrelson, John C. Reilly, Virginia Madsen, Kevin Kline, Tommy Lee Jones, Maya Rudolph is in the movie. There's a lot going on in it. You just get this madcap behind the scenes of this radio show, and there's not a lot of when it comes to the plot of the movie, and I don't think that that's quite the point. I think you're just there to kind of observe the ins and outs, the goings on of what's happening here, because you've got just a cast of characters like I just read off, and the movie is supposed to also have themes of kind of Midwest Americana and things like that, and it's there, but it's subtle enough to where it doesn't bombard you with all of that. But there's not a lot of plot going on or plot conflict or overarching stories or anything like that. So the film may be a little, not quite everyone's cup of tea, especially if you're not in tune with Robert Altman's ensemble films. You'll be kind of like, what am I watching here? I'm just kind of, wasting my time watching actors act. I mean, it's all good acting too. Meryl Streep, I mean, one of the best actors I think we've ever seen. Lily Tomlin's amazing in the movie. By amazing, I mean like she's just, great. She works off of Meryl Streep really well. Yeah, I enjoy the movie for what it is, but don't go into it expecting a Robert Altman masterpiece because that's not what we're going to get. It's really not. He's done better work. Let's see. Oh, we got some other appearances here in the comments. Josie's here. Josie DeMarco's here. Hello. Hello. I'm just getting back to these comments now. Let's see what Josie's been up to. I finished reading The Lost Story by Meg Schaefer. I'm now reading Grounded for All Eternity by Darcy Marks. You read very fast, Josie. I'll say that. I'm incredibly jealous at the pace in which you can read. I'm slowly making my way towards my reading goal of the year of 35 books. I'm currently at 16, which is a few books behind the pace that I need to be keeping up. But I understand what you're saying. We got Johnny here commenting behind the scenes with oddball fantasy elements. It's a very odd film, but I really quite like it. Gives the feeling of watching the show live plus the backstage. I think he's talking about like Prairie Home Companion. That's exactly what it feels like. That's exactly what it feels like. And it's nothing really more than that. And I maybe it's trying to be, but it doesn't quite come off as that. I have to give it a rewatch once I get it, I think, and kind of sit down and really give my time to it. I watched that movie at 2 a.m. Not the best time to watch a Robert Altman film is at 2 a.m. It's not the best time. You really need to lock into the Altman vibe in order to appreciate his films, I think. So yeah, so we those are all the Warner Archive things. We got a slew of very interesting yeah, films here. Once again, diverse slate. So moving away from there, let's move on to another slate. Let's go to Scream and Shout Factory announces their October releases. Because this should be relatively easy to get through. So Death Becomes Her for me is the highlight. It's the one I want the most because for the last few years I've been wanting to buy the Death Becomes Her special edition Blu-ray from Shout Factory, but I had a feeling once we saw the pattern of all these 4K re-releases coming out that it was just a matter of time before Death Becomes Her gets a re-release. I just mentioned Meryl Streep. Meryl Streep is also in Death Becomes Her. This is the Robert Zemeckis film. Um, yeah, I've never owned the movie at all, and that Blu-ray I think came out 2016, I think, so maybe 8 years ago. Let me follow up on that just so I'm not lying. Death Becomes Her. Um, yeah, 2016, and I remember when it came out, and I wanted to get it back then, and I never did. And here we are 8 years later, and I want to get it now, and I can just get the 4K when it comes out. That is coming out October 22nd, and these are all coming out in October. Let's see. So that's Death Becomes Her, the Robert Zemeckis film. If you've seen the movie, maybe you'll like kind of its zaniness in there. Kind of a dark horror comedy, one would say. I don't want to talk about it too much, because I think it's a nice film for people to discover. Next we have which I think is an underrated film. Actually, I don't know if that's a hot take. That is the Wolfman, and this is the Wolfman from 2010, the one directed by Joe Johnston. The film starring Benicio del Toro, Emily Blunt, Anthony Hopkins, Hugo Weaving is in the film. I always thought that this was relatively underrated. I think if I remember correctly, there was some production issues with it in terms of Joe Johnston being able to put out the film that he actually wanted to put out. It was one of those where I guess the studio, put the clamps down on him and told him to do certain things that he didn't want to do. Something that still happens today. It's happened throughout cinema history. Um, yeah, it's I think criminally underrated. I would say give it a watch around Halloween time. That's probably the best time to watch it. The special effects work in that film, I think, are really good. I think they're done by Rick Baker, the Academy Award winning, makeup effects guy. His effects are incredible. He did the effects for um, American Werewolf in London. I think he did the effects. Did he do the effects for The Howling? I think he did. Um, but either way, Rick Baker does incredible work. Um, let's see. After The Wolfman, we've got Land of the Dead, George A. Romero's film from 2005. I watched it for the first time. What's interesting is that I actually owned that movie on DVD for a while. I think it came on a double feature with Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead on DVD. That's how I owned it for a while, and I think I traded it in at some point without even ever watching it, with the idea that I was going to get the Blu-ray, which I never did, which I never did. But it's getting a 4K UHD release, and this is an interesting movie. Um, I wouldn't say it's ahead of its time because I feel like the 2000s was the resurgence of the zombie film. You had, of course, 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later. You had the Walking Dead series came out in 2009, 2010. You had just a bunch of zombie things going on. You had a resurgence of the zombie subgenre in horror make a big comeback. Just same thing you had with vampire films as well. That was kind of overlapping at that time too. The craze for zombies, I think, has dissipated quite severely over the last 5 to 10 years. Uh, but it's nice to revisit, a work of, one of the best ever. George A. Romero is a legend for a reason. He kind of established all of the staples of that genre or that subgenre. This film, Land of the Dead, stars Dennis Hopper, John Leguizamo. It takes place in this dystopian world. Um, it's a fun watch, to be quite honest. It's not a great movie, but it's a fun movie. Really, really fun movie. Simon Baker is kind of the main protagonist of the movie, and Simon Baker is an actor I don't think a lot of people are either aware of or remember. He was in that series The Mentalist, which I think aired from like 2011 to 2017, something like that. It aired for a while. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making up numbers here. But Simon Baker was always an incredibly handsome director. He was always an incredibly handsome actor who looked great on screen. And he's in this movie. Asia Argento's in this movie as well. Um, yeah, it's the movie that notoriously has the kind of self-aware, intelligent zombies to where they can actually like make plans and strategize and do things like that. And maybe that turned people off to this movie in some way. I don't know at the time, but it's a fun watch. But it's getting a 4K UHD release from Shout / Scream Factory. Next, we have the movie Devil, which is another film that I never saw. I remember when it came out in 2010. I remember seeing the trailers for it. I remember when it came out in theaters. I remember people reviewing it on YouTube. I remember that the film had a third act twist. I remember it being produced by M. Night Shyamalan. This was part of him, I guess, getting back into making movies, kind of. Um, but yeah, it's exactly what the premise of the movie suggests. A bunch of people get stuck in an elevator and weird, perhaps supernatural things start happening. That's the movie. Uh yeah, it's exactly what you think. Go into it knowing as little about the twist as possible and just kind of enjoying an 80-minute thriller that takes place in an elevator. Next we got the movie Shocker, a movie by Wes Craven. This is a movie that is kind of too long for the premise, but I think it works. It works. So Shocker is a movie about it's kind of a movie. It's kind of two movies in one, unfortunately, and both fortunately. After being sent to the electric chair, a serial killer uses electricity to come back from the dead and carry out his vengeance on the football player who turned him into the police. That is part of the movie, and the movie stars Michael Murphy. Peter Berg is the young athlete who this killer is after. But what this premise doesn't tell you is that he also has some type of ESP powers, Peter Berg, and he can see what the killer is going to do before he does it, or he's going to see it happen at the same time or whatever. There's a connection there for some subplot reason. That's kind of a big part of the movie. It's fine. It's not one of Wes Craven's better films, but it's an entertaining film to say the least. Came out in 1989. It's coming out October 29th. I want to see what we have for special features. It's probably going to be the same as that were on the Blu-ray release of this that came out several years ago. This was an early Scream Factory release. I want to say 2014. It was one that they had come out with early on. Let me see if I can find it here. Oh, 2015. I was close. So that's Shocker. What else do we have here? As Above, So Below, that coincidental Parisian horror film. The Paris Olympics are going on right now, so that's an interesting kind of thing. Well, they're also putting out a 4K UHD of Drag Me to Hell, the Sam Raimi film. I have that on the Scream Factory Blu-ray that they put out a few years ago. I bought that at Best Buy, of all places. So that's coming out in 4K. That's something I may think of upgrading to at some point. The Blu-ray looks fantastic. It's got great special features. It's Sam Raimi. It's Sam Raimi going back to horror after he had done all of the Spider-Man films. So it's him going back to his roots. Really great body horror, um, cool stuff in that movie going on in there. I won't, spoil it for anyone. So let's see what we got here. Yep, let's see what we got here in terms of our next slate. Let's quickly go over Umbrella. So we've got the Umbrella releases, and there are some familiar films here. Eyes Without a Face is getting a 4K UHD from Umbrella. Once again, I would perhaps hold off on that because you never know if Criterion's going to do that themselves. But if you want to get the Umbrella release, I'm not going to stop you. It does come with 2 new special features, a new audio commentary, and a new video essay as well. So if you want, it's a little extra there. Um, there's a collector's edition with some extra swag, like lobby cards and posters and things like that, and a rich slipcase. If you want that, go for that. Timecrimes. Timecrimes is a movie that I had never heard of until I watched it. This movie came out in 2007, and we're dealing with, you guessed it, time travel in a movie called Timecrimes. So, a man on the run from a relentless killer stumbles into a mysterious lab, accidentally triggers a time machine, and sends himself back in hours. Suddenly, he finds himself entangled in a nightmarish loop where reality blurs and terror reigns. And basically, that's the thing. You find out what is going on here when it comes to messing with time. As we know, if you've seen a movie that deals with time travel in any of its forms, things are going to get messy. Things are going to get messy, and they do in this movie. This is available, I think, on Tubi to stream right now. I think that's where I watched it. There's a new interview with the director on here, Nacho Vigalondo. There's another audio commentary on here with him as well. There's an alternate chronological cut of the film. That's fascinating. There's a making of time crimes documentary. Really cool, really cool. There's a collector's edition like with the usual extra swag. Then we have House of the Devil. For those of you who have just become Ty West fans, go back in time with me. Go back in time to one of his earliest films called House of the Devil. During the 1980s, over 70% of American adults believe in the existence of abusive satanic cults. This film is based on true and unexplained events. We're dealing with satanic cults. We're dealing with the 80s. Very young Greta Gerwig is in this film. I think this is one of the first films she was ever in as an actress. She's now, of course, more known as a director because her recent film work has been fantastic. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything about this movie. It is extremely low budget. Go into it knowing that it's going to look kind of like a student film-ish, in that low budget realm. But stick around for it. It's a slow paced film with a wild third act. That's what I'll say. There's a video essay on here from critic Heather Drain, 2 audio commentaries on here, and then of course you got a collector's edition with extra stuff. 48-page book. That's kind of cool. Art cards and such, reversible poster, cool stuff. And then we got another box set, Ozploitation Rarities Volume 2. So if you've liked the first box set, if you have the first box set, you may want this box set. We've got a few films in here. We've got Desolation Angels, Coda, and The 13th Floor. So you got 3 movies in here. I unfortunately did not get to see any of these. They all have 2K restorations. They all have audio commentaries and interviews. So yeah, they're all 80s films, I believe. So if you like Ozploitation, if you're familiar with the stuff that they've been putting out, Umbrella has been putting out with Ozploitation, this box set may be for you. Moving on from there, there's another box set that I did get to dive into a little bit, and that is Full Moon Fright Box Volume 1. So Umbrella is putting out a box set from Full Moon Pictures. I believe it's Full Moon Pictures. As I'm skimming over the paragraph here. Yeah, Full Moon Entertainment, sorry. So these are like straight to video, like sci-fi horror type of movies done in the early 90s, late 80s. Think of the Arrow Video, what was it, Empire? I almost said Empire of Dreams, but that is not it. I actually have the box set over there. I'm looking right at it across from me. But think of those movies. Yeah, but it's not Empire of Dreams. Hold on. Hold on. I'm actually going to get up and get the box because this is going to drive me bananas. Give me one moment. For those of you listening on audio, give me one moment. Okay, I'm back. I'm back. So it is this box set here. That's the one. The Enter the Video Store Empire of Screams. So I was close. I said Empire of Dreams, Empire of Screams. But think of the movies that were in this box set. Think of The Dungeon Master. Think of Dolls, Cellar Dweller, Arena, and Robot Jocks. And Full Moon Entertainment kind of made those types of movies, but they were straight to video. So lower budgeted, like lower quality, if you will. Um, that's kind of what these are. So you've got Doll Man, Demonic Toys, Dollman vs. Demonic Toys, Demonic Toys 2. Um, yeah, I watched Dollman, Demonic Toys, and Dollman vs. Demonic Toys. And it's exactly what you think it is from the premise. So Dollman is like this, he's like this space cop detective guy who ends up like chasing his nemesis to Earth. And when he arrives on Earth, he's 13 inches tall, hence the name Doll Man. He's the size of a doll. And he ends up getting found by this young woman who is being terrorized by her local gang that are just like harassing her and messing around with her. And the local gang member leader is portrayed by Jackie Earl Haley. And it's fascinating. Super low budget, and he has this like space laser gun that that when he shoots at people they like explode. It's great practical effects. This is the movies that you would find in the back of a video store in the 90s with cool ass covers that you would take home and watch and be like, and either think this is awesome low budget stuff or think like, man, what a waste of money. It's kind of those things. And so you have the first film that's Doll Man, and the second film sets up these toys, these demonic toys, which is exactly what you think. It's toys that are like possessed and come to life and start killing people. And then the third movie, the Doll Man, it fights these demonic toys. That's what's going on here. There's some carryover between um this movie and some other movies that were put out by Full Moon Entertainment, but you don't really need it to know with continuity or anything like that. It's not type of that cinematic world, if you know what I'm saying. Um, but yeah, that's what these movies are all about. I have to say though, uh, they're putting out quite an extras package for this box set here, this Full Moon Fright box volume 1. Each movie looks like it's getting an audio commentary or two. Each movie's getting special features, like I said. There's a 48-page book that's coming with this as well. Yeah, a rigid box slipcase and stuff like that. So I am, it's a cool box set. Umbrella does do some really cool stuff. I've noticed a lot of people getting the Super Mario Brothers, the One Up box set, the One Up set that they put out. Looks really, really cool and stuff. I'm definitely jealous of people who've gotten that over the last little while. But yeah, that's Umbrella. Let's move on from Umbrella. Let's see what else I've got here. There's a couple of one-offs that I want to get into. So About Dry Grasses. This is a movie from 2023. This is going to be a Janus contemporary release from Criterion / Janus on October 22nd. It's a movie I haven't seen. The movie is 197 minutes long. That's why I wasn't able to watch it. It's a Turkish film. It says the latest existential epic from Turkish director Nuri Bilge Ceylan is a masterclass in characterization, atmosphere, moral, and philosophical inquiry. When he comes under scrutiny for misconduct, cynical middle school instructor Semet fears that his punishment will trap him in the snowy, isolated Anatolian village he has grown to despise. The only ray of hope is his relationship with Nure, a fellow teacher who openly challenges Samet's bitter narcissism, yet Samet's friendship with his colleague and roommate, Keenan, who has also feelings for Noir, hangs in the balance, using hypnotic long takes and other bold formal techniques to convey the murky motives of his Dostoevskian protagonist. About Dry Grasses proves Silent to be one of the cinema's most incisive investigators of the human condition. Sounds like a very heavy philosophical movie that is surreal and beautiful, and you need to spend over 3 hours with it. That's what it sounds like to me. There is a trailer here for it as well. I believe it was showed at Cannes, I want to say. But yeah, that's About Dry Grasses, coming out October 22nd. The next Janus Contemporaries release. Next is Made in England, the films of Powell and Pressburger. This is a documentary from 2024. Michael Powell and Emma Pressburger, a director duo unlike any other, really. They of course directed such films as Black Narcissus, as The Red Shoes, just some of the greatest films you'll ever see. Some of the greatest films you'll ever see, and I don't say that lightly. So this is a documentary on the Archers, their production company, and all that kind of stuff. I really want to watch this documentary a lot. Like, I want to see it now. So yeah, there's no special features when it comes to this release. This is put out by Cohen Media Group, and this is coming out October 1st. So October 1st cannot get here fast enough. Although I'm pretty sure it's available now to stream. I would check up on that if I were you guys. But moving on from there, I do want to talk about. Let's see what else I got here. There was another Michael Powell and Emma Pressburger connection. Yes, there is. Hold on for a moment. Sorry, my eyes are running a little dry looking at the screen. So there is a Michael Powell early works set coming out from the BFI. Let me look that up quickly. I forgot to get the tab up beforehand. Michael Powell. This is coming out September 16th, so 1 month from now or so. These are early 1930 works of Michael Powell. Just Michael Powell. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 films in this set. We've got Rhinox from 1932, Hotel Splendide from 1932, The Night of the Party from 1934, Her Last Affair from 1936, and then Behind the Mask, also known as The Man Behind the Mask, from 1936. These all run like either an hour long or under an hour long. They're really short, feature films. And this is all stuff he did, like I said, early 30s. You can't find a lot of these things to watch. I was able to find The Night of the Party, or Murder Party as it's known in the United States, on YouTube in just garish quality, like 240p resolution, public domain print, just not great. So what the BFI is doing with this Michael Powell box set must be miracle. It must be a miracle. It's a 2-disc set. Obviously, since these films are so short, you can put them on, you can put them on 2 discs and they'll be fine in terms of compression and things like that. It says newly remastered from original camera materials and presented in high definition. Newly recorded audio commentaries by Mark Jacobs, Lawrence Napper, and Dom DeLargy, Dr. Josephine Boding, and Rick Pratt. And then looks like there's some other things here. It says Riviera Revels, Travel Laughs, number 1 and number 2. This is a Michael Powell himself appears in these rare short comedy curiosities from the silent era. That's really cool. Inside the Archive, the early films of Michael Powell. A new documentary exploring the BFI National Archive's role in rediscovering and remastering the early films of Michael Powell. Visions, Dreams, and Magic, the unmade films of Michael Powell from 2023. This runs about 41 minutes long. A documentary by Henry Barnes exploring some of Michael Powell's unrealized films. That's amazing. Holy heck. And then his Emmerich Pressburger home video or home movie from 1954, which runs 21 minutes. Powell and Pressburger are both seen on camera as they travel to Argentina for a 1954 film festival. Yeah, this is astonishing. I love box sets like this that are unearthing, restoring, remastering early works from, revered filmmakers. I know BFI did a lot of this when it came to Alfred Hitchcock's works from the 20s and 30s. We've fortunately been able to get a lot of Alfred Hitchcock's work from that pre-Hollywood time era here on Blu-ray from the boutique label world. I know Kino's put out a couple, Criterion's put out a couple. So I this is right in my wheelhouse. Michael Powell, uh, I live for his work. Live for his work. So moving on from there, uh, this is a high must need release. Um, let's move over. Let me actually get rid of some of these. Um, see, there's no like. I'm just getting rid of some tabs here, just so I can keep things in order. Um, let's move over to Kino. Yeah, let's do Kino while we're here. So Kino's got some stuff. Kino's coming out with another Dark Side of Cinema box set number 21. This has the movie Cloak and Dagger from 1946, Shack Out on 101, 1955, Shortcut to Hell from 1957. Um, Obviously, these are all film noir films. I believe these are all from Paramount Pictures. These are all, looks like uh, remasters or masters from Paramount Pictures themselves from 4K scans. Let's see what else we've got here. New audio commentary on each film for Cloak and Dagger, Shack Out on 101, and Shortcut to Hell. I do want to say Shortcut to Hell is directed by James Cagney. Yes. And it's the only film and only thing he ever directed was Shortcut to Hell. Apparently, I think he made the movie for a friend. And it's okay. It's not great. It's a movie that's based on a novel by Graham Greene. Of course, wrote Third Man. Hardboiled hitman Kyle Niles is hired to commit two murders only to be double crossed by his employer Barwell. On the lam and seeking revenge, Kyle kidnaps singer Gloria Hamilton, the girlfriend of the police detective in charge of his pursuit. Uh, it says Glory tries to convince him to surrender before it's too late, but Kyle's humanity is buried deep and his thirst for vengeance is unquenchable. Nice. Nice. I love that description. Shack Out on 101. Um, an attractive waitress at a seaside cafe gets caught in a web of treacherous intrigue when she discovers that her workplace is a secret station for spies. It seems that the cafe is close to an experimental lab that harbors national defense secrets, and a ring of sinister spies has come to steal them. Now it's up to the desperate waitress and a network of undercover FBI men to stop the diabolical scheme. But not before they all stop along the way for a sizzling round of passion and romance, featuring Keenan Wynn and Whit Bissell. It's one of a kind pot boiler comes stylishly directed by filmmaker Edward Dean. I also want to say that the movie stars Lee Marvin. Lee Marvin plays this kind of scummy cook at this restaurant, this diner, and he's such a like a womanizer, and he's not a good guy. He's not a good guy. But he's in the movie in a very early role. This is obviously 1955. Um, so yeah, that's interesting. So we've got Cloak and Dagger here, which is a Fritz Lang film. Now, Cloak and Dagger had already been released by Olive Films on Blu-ray back 2012, 2013, somewhere around there. With this being a Fritz Lang film, it's at least a must watch. The great Gary Cooper is an American nuclear physicist recruited by the Office of Strategic Services and parachuted into war-torn Europe to obtain military secrets. But the deeper he probes, the deadlier his mission becomes, especially when his involvement with a mysterious resistance fighter catapults him into an intense maelstrom of danger, betrayal, romance, and murder. The fourth and final film of Lang's classic anti-Nazi films following Manhunt, Hangmen Also Die, and Ministry of Fear, Cloak and Dagger is the quintessential wartime suspense picture elevated by Sol Polito's terrific black and white cinematography and Max Steiner's rousing score. Yeah, so if you're a big fan of Fritz Lang, as I am, you're going to want to add this to your collection. I kind of wish they were releasing it individually, so I kind of didn't have to buy the other two movies, but I've got to start getting these sets anyway, so I'll eventually work my way to it. So let's move on from there. They are releasing their own release of Burn Witch Burn, or Night of the Eagle, as it's known. We talked about this movie a while ago. They announced it a while ago. It's finally coming on September 17th. Uh, the Film Noir box set's coming on September 17th. I talked about Burn Witch Burn before. Um, this is a brand new master from Studio Canal. It's got a new audio commentary by Tim Lucas. It's got an older audio commentary by Richard Matheson. Yeah, it's a movie worth a watch. It's worth a watch. It's yeah, coming to Blu-ray. Let's see, Body and Soul I've talked about before. It's a film from 1947 starring John Garfield and Lily Palmer. Um, yes, yeah, this is the one. This is the boxing film starring John Garfield. I've talked about this when they announced it. They finally gave it some special features, and they gave it a release date of September 17th. New audio commentary by Alan K. Rhodey. He's a film noir, you know, historian. Next, we got the movie Nightlife, which is a TV movie, which I don't know anything about. I just wanted to mention that they're putting out another TV movie, The Lost Art of the TV movie, which Kino is keeping alive. We got The Rundown, the 2003 movie starring The Rock and starring Sean William Scott, Christopher Walken, Rosario Dawson's in the movie. This is a fun 2000s action film. Directed by Peter Berg, I believe. Yeah, there's another Peter Berg sighting in this episode. um, it's early work from The Rock, just when he was starting out in his career. I've always liked the movie. I've always thought it was underrated. I don't think I've ever owned it, not even on DVD. It's always streaming somewhere, I feel. So check it out if you haven't. It's getting a 4K UHD release. We don't have a date on it yet. We don't have special features, but that's that. I'm going to skip over this movie for now. I'm going to get onto this one for the sake of time. So on September 24th, we are finally getting a 4K UHD release of Murder on the Orient Express, the Sidney Lumet film from 1974. We did get a Blu-ray release of this from Paramount a couple of years ago, but it was kind of a plain Jane release. There was no frills about it. I don't even think the picture quality was that good. This is a 4K UHD release from a 4K scan of 35 millimeter original camera negative. There's an audio commentary here by Howard S. Berger, Steve Mitchell, and Nathaniel Thompson. It's a 2-disc edition, so you get the 4K and the Blu-ray. This is a high priority release for me for the rest of the year. I only have it on DVD, so I've been waiting to upgrade it, and I'm glad I waited because I wanted. It's the 50th anniversary of this movie. Sidney Lumet was kind of untouchable in the 70s for the most part, in my opinion. So check that movie out. Let's see what else we got here. So that is super exciting. Let me scroll back. Yeah. So yeah, as I do want to reiterate, September 24th, Murder on the Orient Express, Sidney Lumet. Next, we've got a double feature, but it's not a double feature, just 2 movies being released back to back, and this is coming September 24th. Red Mountain and Botany Bay, 2 films starring Alan Ladd. Both films are getting audio commentaries. Red Mountain by Sam Deegan, and the audio commentary for Botany Bay is Heath Holland, who is the host of Serial at Midnight, if you follow his YouTube channel. He makes great videos and such. Both are from HD Masters from Paramount Pictures. Yeah, this is something I'm definitely interested in. I didn't have time to watch either of these films, but I'm an Alan Ladd fan, so I'll always, at least give his films a watch. Red Mountain also stars Elizabeth Scott, Arthur Kennedy, and John Ireland. Next, we've got Below the Belt from 1980. There's an audio commentary here by Sam Deegan. This is coming out September 24th. I really just want to see this movie. I don't know much about it. It just says Below the Belt is a gritty, humorous drama about life on the road as a female professional wrestler. In the tradition of Rocky and Fat City, based on the memoir to Smithereens by Rosalind Drexler, who wrestled as the Mexican Spitfire, is a realistic and moving take on the highs and lows of life on the road, or life on the mat. So yeah, it's a kind of a wrestling quasi biopic. I want to. Yeah, I would love to give that a watch. There's an audio commentary by Sam Deegan on it as well. Next is My Favorite Spy from 1951, coming out September 24th by Kino Lorber. It's a movie starring Bob Hope and Hedy Lamarr. If Hedy Lamarr is in something, I want to see it. that's my thing. Bob Hope, funny guy. Um, I'm gonna check this movie out. Audio commentary by Sam Deegan as well. 4K scan from HD Master by Paramount. Um, yeah, I'm in. I'm in. Next is a movie called The Ballad of Josie, starring Doris Day, Peter Graves, George Kennedy, the late great George Kennedy. Man, I wish I got to meet him. Um, and directed by Andrew V. McLaglen, who did McClintock, Shenandoah, Cahill, U.S. Marshals. He did a lot of movies with John Wayne. He did a lot of movies with John Wayne. He kind of kept that old style of Western around beyond the point where Westerns had changed because of the spaghetti Western movement. John Wayne basically held on to the old style Western until the end of his life and end of his career. Andrew V. McLaglen did a lot of films with him. I don't know anything about the movie other than it's stars Doris Day in a Western, which sounds interesting to me. Next is a movie called Vice Squad, which I think they put out before, so this may be a 4K UHD upgrade from them. Directed by Gary Sherman, who directed Dead and Buried, Wanted Dead or Alive. It's a movie about a cop dealing with Vice Squad, I think, having to go undercover in the Vice Squad, stuff like that. It's a gritty 1980s cop drama, so I'll definitely give it a watch. So that is everything from Kino from the last time up until now. Let's move on from Kino. Let's move on to our buddies over at Deaf Crocodile, because there's a lot to go over, but I'll make it brief as not to overwhelm all of us here. So Deaf Crocodile, since moving away from the partner labels and OCN and all that stuff, they've been taking off running. They got a lot of things going here. So one of their releases that is upcoming is a movie called Adela, is an irresistible slapstick combination of 19th century James Bond gadgetry, Little Shop of Horrors, Blake Edwards circa The Pink Panther Strikes Again, and just a splash of Johnny Dangerously. In other words, a sheer delight. I'm always interested in what they've got cooking over there at Deaf Crocodile, and I've so much to show to the point. There's no release date yet for that yet. So it's Adela. Adela has not had supper yet. That's the name of the movie. And there's a bunch of other names here as well, but that's the title I'm going to go with. It's when the famous detective Nick Carter visits Prague, he becomes involved in a strange case of a missing dog and even stranger carnivorous plant. He becomes convinced that he is standing against his greatest enemy, the gardener, who supposedly died years ago in a swamp. This sounds unhinged as heck. I can't wait to see it. So that's that, but they also have other things cooking. So last week, towards the end of July, not this past week, the week before, Deaf Crocodile, I believe, went on our buddy The Disconnected show that he has every Thursday night at 9:30, where he goes live on YouTube and such. And Deaf Crocodile went over there and dropped a bunch of news. So titles that they revealed during that show are Trapped Ashes, a 2006 film, which will be their first 4K film. The first 4K release. Cathedral of New Emotions from 2006, Freckled Max and the Spooks from 1987, Gwen or the Book of Sand from 1985, I Married a Strange Person, plus two more Billy Plimpton shorts. So I Married a Strange Person you can watch on Tubi. It's where I watched it. And Mutant Aliens from 2001, Signals from 1970, which will also be released on 4K, In the Dust of Stars from 1976, Inflatable Sex Doll of the Wasteland from 1967, Kingdom in the Clouds from 1969, and Mama, also known as Rock and Roll Wolf from 1976, Devil's Bride from 1974, The Mystery of the Third Planet from 1981, and The Past from 1988. So those will all be released by Deaf Crocodile at some point. a lot of stuff to look forward to from their line in the future. I've never been, um, we've been covering Deaf Crocodile here for a little while. I'm actually looking for the one Deaf Crocodile release that I actually do have, and it's around here somewhere. But found it. Yeah, found my two ones that I've got. I've got the Zero Grad and I've got the Assassination of the Tsar, or the Assassin of the Tsar. These are the two Deaf Crocodile releases I have. So I am unfortunately way behind on their stuff, but their stuff has always been interesting. The movies that they pick are drudged out of some deep archive of like Eastern European type of films that you just never seen or even heard of. That's how deep their catalog goes. So they're spreading their wings and they're putting out a lot of great stuff now. They're working with Diabolic when it comes to putting out all of these releases, I believe. So go to the Diabolic DVD website and check out what they've got cooking over there. Yeah, so that's Deaf Crocodile. If you want to listen to their interview that they did over on the Disconnected show, go to his YouTube channel and you can find it there. It's the one that was done in late July, July 27th, I think, or 26th, one of the late weeks. Yeah, so let me move past that. Get rid of these tabs that I've got cooking here. I think we've got one more slate here, and then we can go to Vinegar Syndrome. I feel like we're making good on time. We're making good on time. Okay, we're an hour and 16 minutes in. Yeah, so let's see. Let's go to Arrow. So Arrow put out an interesting slate. They've put out a slate of some upgrades and re-releases, and we will get into that. So Trick or Treat, the film that I think everyone watches during the Halloween season, I know I do, is getting a 4K UHD upgrade. The Michael Dougherty film, the film that is anthological but also connecting. It's a great film. I've been hoping we were going to get a sequel for years. I heard that was in the works, but it kind of never really came to fruition, which is a shame. Let's see, let me put these back over there. It's a shame because I always wanted one. It's got that little character in it, Sam, I think his name is. The movie stars Brian Cox, Dylan Baker, Leslie Bibb, Anna Paquin's in the film. I've always loved this movie. I've always recommended it to horror fans if they hadn't seen it. I recommended it to people. There was let me check for a moment. There has been a special edition put out by Scream Factory a couple of years ago, back in 2018. They put out their own release of this, and it came loaded with special features. Just absolutely loaded to the gills with special features. I haven't done a side-by-side comparison when it comes to this new edition that Arrow is putting out. Let me go back and look quickly in terms of what we're getting here. This looks pretty loaded as well. This looks very loaded. Very loaded when it comes to special features. I don't know if it's a 1-to-1 ratio here in terms of what we're getting versus the Shout Factory / Scream Factory release, but it's pretty damn stacked. And I think Shout Factory hasn't put out this out in 4K yet. No, they haven't. I just want to make sure about that. 4K restoration. Let's see the rest. I have to scroll back up. 4K restoration, all that kind of good stuff. Sorry, I'm losing a little wind right here. So they're also putting out Hellraiser Quartet of Torment, the 4K Blu-ray box set. Hold on. Yeah, they're putting it out in 4K. They're putting it out in Blu-ray. I think it's the same release they've already put out in the 4K. They're just putting it out here in the US and Canada. I'm pretty sure that's what we're getting. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the same release. Because I think initially they only had the rights in the UK to put it out, and I guess they acquired the rights to put it out in the US and Canada. So that of course contains the first 4 Hellraiser films. It's Hellraiser, Hellbound, or no, it's Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth, and then Hellraiser Bloodline. Um, yeah, loaded with special features, new audio commentary per each film. I'm pretty sure many of you already own this. I know this was a hot seller when it came out. So yeah, there's a Blu-ray, there's a 4K, but moving on from there, we're also getting Exorcist 2: The Heretic and Exorcist 3 4K. Um, I think yeah. So the Exorcist 2 is only coming out on Blu-ray. Hold on, I probably should have checked this before I did all this. It's never. Yeah, so The Exorcist 2 is only getting a Blu-ray release, and The Exorcist 3 is getting a 4K release. Kind of pretty much the same way it was released here by Scream Factory. Whereas Exorcist 2 got only a Blu-ray release, Exorcist 3 got a 4K and a Blu-ray release. So let's move back because I want to dive into a little bit of these special features. So Exorcist 2, the film directed by John Boorman. I know a lot of Exorcist fans and horror fans alike do not like this movie. They skip right over and go right to Exorcist 3. Everyone recommends you do that because Exorcist 2 people do not like at all. I don't mind the movie. I understand why people don't like it. I know William Friedkin, when he was alive, did not like the movie. I don't know if he actually ever saw the movie or if he just didn't like that someone made a sequel to a movie that he made. He was a unique individual. But this is a 2-disc edition. The first disc has the original premiere version. The second disc has the international version. We do get a host here, special features. There is a new commentary by the late Lee Gambin and filmmaker David Kittredge, director of the forthcoming feature-length Exorcist 2 documentary, Heretics. Cool. New audio commentary by screenwriter Kelly Goodner and film historian Jim Hemphill. 2 archival commentaries, one by John Boorman, one by special consultant Scott Michael Bosco. Yet again, I don't know what the comparison is to the Scream Factory release. To be honest, I would rather get this release just so I could, listen to the Lee Gambin commentary personally. Then we got Exorcist 3, the 4K release. This is another 2-disc release. Theatrical cut, first disc, Legion director's cut in the second disc. This is it's directed by William Peter Blatty, who wrote the original book that The Exorcist is based on. And I believe he also wrote the original William Friedkin film as well. And this one is more in line with The Exorcist, the first film. That's why I think a lot of people like it. It's also a better movie than the second one. This stars George C. Scott. 15 years after the events of the first film, Lieutenant Kinderman, George C. Scott, investigates a series of horrific murders that follow the modus operandi of the notorious Gemini killer who died several years earlier in the electric chair after his friend, Father Dyer, is murdered in his hospital bed. Kinderman's investigation leads him to Patient X, a psychopath housed at the same hospital who claims to be the Gemini killer and who knows intimate crime scene details. Their encounter leads to a fiery climactic confrontation between the eternal forces of good and evil. It's a bit, it's people know this. I don't have to explain this to people. The second film is more of a direct sequel to The Exorcist. You're dealing with the Linda Blair's character. I believe she's in like a mental hospital and stuff like that. Richard Burton is in the movie, if I remember correctly. Louise Fletcher's in the film as well. I don't own either of these films, and I gotta get them, so I'm probably gonna buy these 2 releases. That's the end of that. Next, we've got a box set, a Japanese horror box set. And the Japanese horror box set is a 3-disc box set, and the movies contained in are Shikoku and Isola, Multiple Personality Girl. The disc 2 has Inugami and St. John's Wort, and the third disc has Carved Slit Mouth Woman and Persona. All of these are getting brand new audio commentaries. I don't know anything about these movies. I'll be straight with you. other than they're kind of modern-ish Japanese horror films in the sense that I think they're from the 2000s. So think of in the same era as Ringu, the same era as The Grudge. If you know what I'm saying. So they're in that era of Japanese horror, not quite the old stuff from like the 60s, those ghost story ones that we talked about last time. So that is Arrow. Let's move over now to Vinegar Syndrome. Yay! We've reached the stretch in terms of our episode here. We're in the home stretch here. For some reason, I thought I skipped over a bunch of things because we're moving way faster than I thought. I say that, and then I'll end up talking about all kinds of stuff going on and on and on. So no, we're here. I'm looking at my notes. We're here. So Vinegar Syndrome, of course, August 1st came around last Thursday, and we had a slew of announcements from them. And let's dive into them, shall we? First, we got the Vinegar Syndrome proper releases. We've got Devil Times 5. We've got Hell's Trap, Bloodbath at House of Death. We have My Father is a Hero, also known as The Enforcer. And we've got Love on Delivery. And then we've got two Cinematographe releases. Cinematographe. Cinematographe? I can never pronounce it properly. So we got two of those releases. We've got Thieves Like Us and Joyride. Thieves Like Us was a surprise to me. So Thieves Like Us, of course, is the Robert Altman film. Thieves Like Us has been put out by a couple of people. Thieves Like Us has been put out by Kino here in the US. It's been put out overseas by our buddies over at Radiance. Let me make sure I'm saying that correctly. Yes, Thieves Like Us. Yeah. Kino here, Radiance there, and then in a couple of other places. But yeah, so this is fascinating because let me get out my copy. Should be here in this stack I've got over on the right. Let's see, there it is. Here's my copy as I'm hitting the microphone unprofessionally. Let me move that over here. Please stack. Do not fall on me. Or do not fall over in any way. So let me see. Here's my copy of Thieves Like Us. The Robert Altman film from 1974. This is the 50-year anniversary film as well. But in terms of special features here, and special features when it comes to the Vinegar Syndrome release, let's take a look. While we're here, let's do this thing. So the one that's being put out by Cinematographe, or the Cinematographe, we're getting a new audio commentary with film historian Nathaniel Thompson, new interview with screenwriter Joan Tewksbury, archival commentary with director Robert Altman, archival interview with actor Keith Carradine, new essays by film critics Mitchell Beaupre, that's our buddy. Oh, Mariah Gates, Carlo Valadares. Mitchell Beaupre and Mariah have both been guests here on Chasing Labels in the past. Mariah is, of course, the founder of the hashtag Noirvember. She's one of my biggest influences when it comes to movies and things like that, and just movie academia, really. But let's see here on the release by Radiance. We've got here special features. There's a brand new interview with co-screenwriter Joan Tewksbury. There's an audio commentary by Robert Altman. Let's see. There's a brand new interview with co-screenwriter Joan Tewksbury and star Keith Carradine. Jeff Andrew on Thieves Like Us. The critic discusses the film and its place within Altman's work. Two classic radio plays featured in the film. The Shadow, written by and starring Orson Welles and Speed Gibson of the International Secret Police, starring Ed Gardner. So it looks like you do get... The only thing you get different here is the the audio commentary with film historian Nathaniel Thompson is not here. It's not on this release. Not on this release. You don't get the obviously you don't get the cool packaging that Cinematographe gives, and you don't get the essays that are on here as well. So moving from there, we got the movie Joyride, which is the other Cinematographe release. This is a movie from 1977 starring Desi Arnaz Jr., Robert Carradine, Melanie Griffith, and Lockhart. This is an interesting kind of road movie from the 70s. I mean, obviously with the title Joyride kind of gives it away. But so 3 disaffected youths in California. You got Robert Carradine, Melanie Griffith, and their friend Scott, portrayed by Desi Arnaz Jr. Desi Arnaz Jr. being the son of Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, if you couldn't put that together, abruptly quit their jobs and take a ferry headed to Alaska in the pursuit of a new life running a salmon fishing business. Shortly after arriving, they are robbed, spurring a ripple effect of violence and repercussions. Yeah, basically, they quit their jobs, uproot their life, and just drive to Alaska to start this business. But once they get here, just one bad thing starts happening after another. The local people don't really get along with them, as you can tell here. They can't make money to survive. They can't find a place to live. All the usual life things happen to them. And it's basically just them trying to survive in that regard. The movie is fascinating when it comes to kind of exploring those things and how universal that struggle can be even to this day. That's what I found so interesting about it, is its contemporary, and how contemporary it is, and people still struggling today to find the essentials to live. Food and shelter, you know what I mean? Food, shelter, safety. Those are kind of the essentials. And how that's kind of a universal thing. When it comes to special features here, we have a new audio commentary with Elaine Silver and Christopher Coppola. Cool. Youthful Intensity, an interview with director and co-writer Joseph Rubin. Can't Miss the Boat, an interview with director of photography Stephen M. Katz, and essays by film critics Chris Shields, Adam Naiman, and Brandon Strusnig. Very interesting. It's got that 70s grit to it as well. If you're familiar with the 70s vibe, I can't wait to see how this looks, to be honest with you. So yeah, that's Joyride. So those are the 2 Cinematographe releases. I did get a chance to watch Devil Times 5. Devil Times 5 reminds me a lot of Children of the Corn, which is a film I'm not a big fan of. So basically, these 5 children are in a car accident and they're being transported from a local psychiatric hospital, and they end up kind of getting loose and getting into the woods, and they stumble upon these people who are staying at this cabin, and they let's just say they're kind of sociopathic. Things aren't quite right with them in the head. Let's just say that, and murder and mayhem ensue. That's that movie. Bloodbath at the House of Death, similar type of film. The only reason I watched Bloodbath at the House of Death is Vincent Price is in the movie. He's only in the movie for probably 10 to 15 minutes, maybe. He's in like 3 scenes. Kind of unfortunate because I wanted to watch it. I knew it was 1984. It was later on in his career where, of course, he couldn't, probably be in an entire film. But it counts towards my Letterboxd goal of seeing every Vincent Price film, I guess. And in similar regard to the other film, this is actually a British comedy horror that's also satirical as well. So you've got a lot of things going on here that you weren't quite expecting. So a riotous British send-up of the fad of paranormal investigation and haunted house films. So this movie's kind of becomes a spoof or a satire of Amityville horror towards the end. It mixes supernatural thrills and the hearty sense of risque humor, boasting the only feature film performance from famed British comedian Kenny Everett and co-starring the legendary Vincent Price, along with Pamela Stevenson, Gareth Hunt, and John Fortune. Vinegar Syndrome brings this delightfully spooky horror comedy to Blu-ray, newly restored in 4K from its 35mm camera negative. It's exactly what all that is. It's exactly what all of that says. You've got audio commentary here. You've got a new restoration. I believe this is. No, it's not a 4K release. It's just a regular Blu-ray. But Devil Times 5 is a 4K. I have seen My Father is a Hero, also known as The Enforcer, in the past, but I don't quite remember the movie. I know it stars Jet Li. Let me see if I can look it up on my Letterboxd. Can't remember in which context I watched it for. Yeah, it's the one. I believe this is the one from 1995. Make sure I have the right movie. Yep, 1995. Corey Wen is the director. Jet Li starring. Um, let's see. The plot is an undercover cop struggling to provide for his son and ailing wife, but must infiltrate a ruthless gang. But things turn sour when another cop blows his cover and he quickly finds himself battling for his life and the lives of his family. I do remember watching this. It's kind of all flooding back to me now. So yeah, so that is the Enforcer. This is getting quite a nice release here. Um, just a regular Blu-ray, but it's newly restored by Vinegar Syndrome from a studio-supplied 4K master. There's a commentary track here by his film historian Frank Zhang. Interview with Wang Jing, a brand new interview with producer Wang Jing. Crowd pleaser, an archival interview with producer Wang Jing. Like Father, Like Son, an archival interview with actor Sei Mui. Born to be Bad, an archival interview with actor Ken Lo. Cool. So that's the Enforcer. Now let's move over to the partner labels, because that's where I get the most out of all this. That's where I get like the bulk of my happiness from the announcements is usually from the partner labels. I'm fading a little bit here, so please excuse me. So some must-have buys are in here. I will say that. So we've got a slew of releases. I'll just list them down, and then I'll dive into the ones I got to watch and the ones that I'm interested in. So from ETR Media, we have a Fat Wreck, the Punkumentary. From Yellow Veil Pictures, A Heart of Love. From Factory 25, I Am a Sex Addict. From Film Movement Classics, L'Innocente. From Utopia, Omen. Not The Omen, just Omen. Saturn's Core, Our World is Drowning and Going to Hell, the underground films of Richard Baylor. You said it, Richard. Film Movement Classics, The Poetry of Lee Chang-dong, 4 films. I will be talking about that. Film Movement Classics, once again, Scarlet Diva. That film is directed by Asia Argento. The catalog is putting out Seppa, Our Lord of Miracles. Yeah, and then Umbrella Entertainment is putting out Sky Pirates, which they've already put out before. So this is a re-release from them. American Genre Film Archive, or AGFA, as the cool kids call it, is putting out Super Soul Brother and the films of Rene Martinez Jr. Canadian International Pictures, our buddies over at Canadian International Pictures, are putting out Sweet Substitute, or as the movie is called, I think in the US, Caressed. And then we've got from Dark Star, T Blockers, and then from Shudder, A Wounded Fawn. And that is all of the OCN or partner label releases for I don't even know what month. All coming out in August. Yes, August. I forgot what month we were doing. So I will dive into a couple of things here. First and foremost, top of the list, must buy. If we're talking Monopoly, do not, go past go, collect $200, do whatever you need to do. The Poetry of Lee Chang-dong, 4 films. This is a must buy. This is an absolute must buy. This has 4 films, as the title suggests: Oasis, Peppermint Candy, Poetry, and Green Fish. I've seen Oasis, Peppermint Candy, and Poetry. All fantastic films. Green Fish, I did not get a chance to watch. I could not find that film streaming anywhere. I couldn't find it to rent. I couldn't find it at all. I think it's only available on disc. But Oasis, Peppermint Candy, and Poetry, I've been able to see. One of Lee Chang-dong films is on the Criterion collection. His other film, most recent film, Burning, from a few years ago, starring Stephen Wen. I got to get that movie. I know Steven is a big fan of that movie. These films were released um, already by who released this? Was it? Hold on. Did I already? Hold on. Yeah, Film Movement. Hold on. I'm trying to see who put this movie out already. Yeah, it was. There was a 3 films box set of Lee Chang Dong films put out by Umbrella. That's who put it out. It had Peppermint Candy, Oasis, and Poetry in that box set, but this box set here from Film Movement has a 4th film in Green Fish. So that's why I'm saying this may be a little more worth your investment because you do get that 4th film. Um, but this is a must buy. This director's work is extraordinary, incredibly, just really pure cinema. Um, I can't say enough about it. I gushed about it when that box set was announced from Umbrella, and I'm gonna gush about it even more now. It's these are must buys. Um, Unfortunately, there's a little in the way of special features. There's a making of for each film, and that's kind of really it. There's an interview here on Poetry. There's some audition takes. There's some cast and crew interviews on Oasis. Um, yeah, it's a 4 disc set, so you get them all in individual discs, individual cases, I assume. Uh, but yeah, that's a must buy. That's number one with a bullet. If we're sticking on Film Movement, I'll talk about Scarlet Diva. It's the Asia Argento film that came out in 2000. It's shot on mini DV cam, one of the earliest forms of digital digital filmmaking. The film is um, kind of autobiographical. It's a movie dealing with an artist, specifically music artist, and their struggles and their relationships and them trying to break into the acting industry and how harsh that can be, especially for young women. We know about the Me Too movement and we know about the history within Hollywood of their terrible treatment, sexual harassments, and taking advantage of manipulation, all of these horrible things that they've been doing to women for decades upon decades. And this movie gets into that a little bit. If you're familiar with Asia Argento, she was big during the Me Too movement. Um, I won't go into all of that now because I'll get all sidetracked and stuff. But she was big involved in there, specifically when it came to with Harvey Weinstein and all that kind of stuff. And there's a sequence in this movie that's a direct correlation to that. Like she kind of reenacts that in this movie. What's interesting is about watching this movie with that hindsight and with that thought in mind. Um, I don't know how people didn't pick up on this. You know what I mean? Like it was kind of right in front of people's faces the whole time, and they didn't understand it, or they just kind of turned a blind eye to producers and people like Harvey Weinstein taking advantage of people because they're in positions of power and all that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, so this movie is incredibly low budget, very avant-garde, kind of all over the place when it comes to cinematography, when it comes to filmmaking, when it comes to story and plot and all that kind of stuff. But it is also about a character who's kind of spiraling, who's you know, utilizing drugs, utilizing uh, copious amounts of sex, kind of using that to cope with a lot of things, all this kind of stuff, not in a healthy way. You know what I'm saying? And it's interesting how Asia Argento is able to kind of, you know, navigate all of those things in a movie. Because when I think of Asia Argento, I don't think of her as a director. But yeah, this movie is incredibly low budget. I'm very curious what it's going to look like on Blu-ray because it is shot on mini DV cam because it looks rather rough aesthetically. But there's 2 new audio commentaries here by Asia Argento from 2002 and a new commentary um, exclusively done in 2018. Look into the Eye of the Cyclops featurette with Joe Coleman. Asia Argento interview, Making of Scarlet Diva featurette. An interesting film of kind of self exploration. and all that. And this is put out by, like I said, Film Movement Classics. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, while I'm right here along the line, the catalog, Seppa, Our Lord of Miracles. This movie's this movie stuck on a shelf in like a closet or an office for 30 years and it was unearthed. This is a documentary. It's a documentary having languished in a closet for more than 30 years, the newly rediscovered film is a unique documentary record of a bold and troubling experiment in criminal justice. A collaboration between Walter Saxer, the producer of Werner Herzog's Fitzcarraldo, and Peruvian Nobel laureate Mario Vargas Llosa, Seppa, Our Lord of Miracles observes an open-air penal colony of the same name, created in 1951 by the Peruvian government in the Amazonian jungle. Tasked with growing crops on these colonized lands, the inmates were permitted to roam freely, commune with their families, and dance and cook together, yet they soon found themselves in despair, abandoned and forgotten by their country and the world at large. This movie was forgotten and abandoned. And as I said, stuck in a closet for 30 years. It runs 79 minutes long. It's from 1987. You can watch it currently streaming on the Criterion channel. That's where I saw it. It's an astonishing documentary just because of not only what it's depicting, but you're viewing lives of people who are probably no longer alive. You know what I mean? When you watch a documentary like this from so many years ago, it's like you're watching ghosts. You know what I mean? And it has a very ethereal quality to it. It's like you're watching a world that doesn't exist, yet did exist, and trying to wrap your mind around that idea, that paradoxical idea. This film is quite interesting. It's not great when it comes to documentary in terms of like structure and plot and things like that. It's kind of all over the place. You're kind of just observing this life, these inmates. Yeah, it's a wonder. It's a wonder of a work. A wonder of a work. There's 2 audience Q&As with filmmaker Walter Saxer and daughter Michaela Saxer at Metrograph, New York, October of 2022. New interview with filmmaker uh, Walter Saxer recorded at Casa Fitzcarraldo in Quités, Peru. There's a booklet introduction by Werner Herzog. Hello. Booklet essay by Michaela Saxer. Yeah, the catalog. I don't know where you found this, but this is incredible. Quickly, L'Innocente is an Italian film directed by the legendary and the great Luchino Visconti. I haven't seen a lot of Visconti's work. He's one of those filmmakers to me that's rather daunting. I do have The Leopard, and I've seen a couple of his movies. Let me see what I've actually seen. I don't own a lot of his. I think I only have The Leopard. Let's see. Yeah, Luchino Visconti. So I've watched La Notte Bianche, Senso, which has a Criterion release. That movie Ludwig, that's him. He also directed Rocco and His Brothers. He directed Death in Venice. He directed Bellissimo. I know he's a huge influence on Martin Scorsese and that whole era of filmmakers of that time. Like Visconti was a big, big influence on all those guys. So yeah, I got to get more Visconti in my collection. So that's why I guess this will be something I will be buying. It's Reframing L'Innocente video essay by author Ivo Blom, booklet essay with author Dan Callahan. I know nothing about this movie, so I'm just gonna keep it at that because I want to go into it as blind as I can. I just want to make sure people are aware that there's more Visconti out there. Then there's this movie called Omen by Utopia. What a trip of a movie. What a trip of a film. This movie came out in 2023. It's directed by Ballad. Following Coffey's return to his birthplace after he has been ostracized by his family, Omen explores the weight of beliefs in one's destiny through 4 characters accused of being witches and sorcerers, all of them intertwined and guiding each other into the phantasmagoria of Africa. Yeah, this movie is interesting. It only runs 91 minutes, but it's dealing with a lot. You are dealing primarily, at its core, with this character named Coffey, who's coming back from after living in Belgium pretty much, I think, throughout all of his life and into his adulthood, coming back and, going back to his family in, in Africa, and trying to deal with all of that stuff, being put back into a culture that you haven't been into in a very long time, a culture that you were essentially kicked out of, a family that you were kicked out of, and trying to, deal with all of those things. That's one part of it, and then there's a whole surreal, magical, avant-garde part of the movie that really notches us up to a different level of filmmaking that's truly bold in its style, and truly bold in its filmmaking. I can't explain it to you without you having to watch it, because it's that unique of a film. Really, really good stuff here. Really good stuff. Um, so that is Omen, being put out by Utopia. Um, let's see. Uh, a couple more things I want to touch upon. Sweet Substitute, or Caressed, as it's called. I gotta promote my guys over at Canadian International Pictures. They do great work over there. They were guests here on Chasing Labels. Super awesome dudes. This movie is directed by Larry Kent. In the wake of the Bitter Ash and censorship battles, it inspired director Larry Kent returned with this more playful but no less provocative sophomore effort, an intoxicating blend of carefree sex comedy and unsparing coming of age drama. So, The Bitter Ash is a film that they put out already, directed by Larry Kent, and this, of course, I believe, is his follow up. Sweet Substitute plays like a hedonistic reimagining of the same year's Nobody Waved Goodbye. There we go. Aimed at the exploitation film market, a surprise success in the U.S. under the title name Caressed. It sets the stage for Kent's next leap forward with When Tomorrow Dies, the third and final entry in his celebrated Vancouver trilogy. So here we go. Let me see if I have it over here. There you are. There you are. So I have Nobody Waved Goodbye. While I was watching this movie, not this movie, but while I was watching Caressed, I was like, man, this reminds me of Nobody Waved Goodbye, because it's got that after school special type moments that Nobody Waved Goodbye has. And you've got these kind of unsufferable, immature, teenaged characters. And I'm like, yeah, it reminds me of the kid in this, the dumb kid in this. And this movie, Sweet Substitute, is like a more teen angsty, more sex-driven comedy version of Nobody Waved Goodbye. Think of kind of, a 1960s version of, American Pie, something like that. That's the way these kids are acting. They're going after young women. Their hormones are out of control. They're in their late teenage years. All of those things that many of us lived through and whatnot, and many of us, watched movies about and all that kind of stuff. It feels like every generation has these types of movies to them. We got them in the 80s, we got them in the 70s, we got them in the 90s, we got them in the 2000s. I mean, it seems like we get these movies all the time, and that's kind of what this is. So it's both, it's dated, it's misogynistic, of course. All of the movies of that subgenre are, but it's fascinating to me just looking back that, you know, kids in the 60s grew up with the same type of mentality as modern day kids as well. Or modern day young people, teenage years and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? As generations go on and we get older, I get older, you listening get older, I think we should take some time to look back, and not only look back at our generation, but the generations previously and the generations going on now and then the future ones, and see that we're all not that far separated from one another when it comes to the growing pains of life, when it comes to the immaturity, when it comes to teenage adolescence and all that kind of stuff. There are certain things that do connect us. Obviously, as time has gone on, things have changed. Technology, life, culture, sexuality, and all these kinds of things have changed drastically. But getting down to the core things, those are still you can still see them. So that's what this movie kind of really shows. Once again, great work by the guys over at Canadian International Pictures. If you haven't checked out any of their work, please do. Yeah, so I'll move on from those guys. We all know how great they are. This is actually a loaded release before I move on. We've got new audio commentary, new introduction by Larry Kent, new interview with Larry Kent. We've got a bunch of other stuff on here. Really, really loaded release. Glad to see it. Glad to see it. Um, the Shutter release, A Wounded Fawn. Talk about avant-garde and surreal. This is actually already in the standard edition. There's only about 250 copies left already. This is streaming on Shutter. If you do have access to these Shutter streaming services, these horror streaming service, you can watch it on there, like I did. Um, the description is as such. This movie came out in 2022, so it's newish. Meredith Tanning, a local museum curator, is dipping her toe back into the dating pool only to be targeted by a charming serial killer. When a fateful romantic getaway between the two become a tense game of cat and mouse, both must confront the madness within him. Um, the second to third act of this movie gets very surreal and kind of awesome in that regard. It reminds me of an episode of the Hannibal TV series. You know, the Hannibal TV series that aired on NBC starring Mads Mikkelsen. It reminded me exactly of that. Every episode of that show was kind of like this, if you know what I'm saying. Very surreal, very avant-garde, graphic as all hell, bloody as all hell. Amazing television, really. How that was able to be on network TV for 3 years, I will never know. Brian Fuller, if you're out there somewhere, bring that show back. Bring it back, please, if you can. So that is The Wounded Fawn. And I think that's kind of where I will end it, because I didn't get to see the other films, and I think we're kind of at the 2-hour mark. Yeah, we're close to the 2-hour mark now. I feel like that's a good place to end it. There are, of course, a couple of more releases, but I'm not too familiar with them. I only had a couple of days to dive into all of these, and I just basically raced and watched as much as I could until time, you know, until the time of the show. So thank you all. Thank you all for joining me here once again. This has been Chasing Labels episode or spy number 145. We went over a bunch of things tonight. Check out the new episode of the Unwatched Pile that Steven, myself, and Celeste Lacabre did recently. Really cool, interesting talks there. Always nice to have Celeste Lacabre here on the channel. We will, of course, be doing another Unwatched Pile this month. You know, August is already upon us. I will be back here live streaming in 2 weeks from now to discuss whatever gets announced between then and now. Until then, keep on watching those movies because I know I will.